Oh, okay. No, no.
Mr. Chair, you have quorum.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to call our meeting to order. If you could please call the roll.
Yes. Board Member Lesenio? Leoncio, I'm sorry,
Present.
Leoncio.
I figured that one.
What did you say, Yesenia?
He's here. Okay. Board Member Yanis?
Present.
Board Member Senra?
Present.
Board Member De La Sera?
Present.
Board Member Fernandez?
Present.
Vice Chairwoman Matos?
Present.
Chairman Julia?
Present.
Chairman, you have quorum.
Okay, at this time, I'd like everyone to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the December 3rd Planning and Zoning minutes. It was brought to my attention by Board Member De La Sierra that I think that there's a minor error on the members that were in attendance. I know Board Member Juan Carlos Fernandez was present, and his name is not included on the item number 2.
This will be corrected.
I don't know if there's any other corrections. If not, if there's a motion to approve the minutes, I guess as amended, including Juan Carlo, we would need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
We have a motion. It's been seconded. I believe this would be an all yay or nay approval. All those board members in favor say yay.
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 Yay. Yay.
Any opposed? Hearing no opposed, the item passes. So next item on the agenda would be the quasi-judicial public hearing. If the attorney would please read the information so we could proceed.
Thank you, Chair. Please be advised that the following items on the board's agenda are quasi-judicial in nature. An opportunity for persons to speak on each item will be made available after the applicant and the staff have made their presentation on each item. All testimony, including public testimony and evidence, will be made under oath or affirmation. Additionally, each person who gives testimony may be subject to cross-examination. If you do not wish to be either cross-examined or sworn, your testimony will be given its due weight. The general public will not be permitted to cross-examine witnesses, but the public may request the board to ask questions of staff or witnesses on their behalf. Persons representing organization must present evidence of their authority to speak on behalf of the organization. Any person presenting documents to the board should provide the town clerk with a minimum of 10 copies. Further details of the quasi-judicial procedure may be obtained by the clerk. And, Mr. Chair, we do have one item this evening. It is a application for a variance, and with your permission, I'd like to read the item and then ask the clerk to swear the persons who are going to be providing testimony to be sworn in.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item A is an order of the Planning and Zoning Board of the Town of Miami Lakes pursuant to Section 13305F1 of the Town of Miami Lakes Land Development Code, granting a variance or denying a variance from Section 134267 to permit a swimming pool to encroach 4 feet and 6 inches waterward of the top of the slope tie line, and granting a variance from Section 13-1605C7 to permit a swimming pool waterward of the top of the slope tie line for the property located at 16691 Northwest 82nd Avenue, Miami Lakes, Florida, in the RU1 zoning district, providing findings, providing for granting of the request for conditions, providing for appeal, and providing for an effective date.
Please rise and raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth, so help me God?
I do.
Okay. At this time, if staff would first bring in their information on the issue.
Good evening, staff, board members, and chairman. This item is a quasi-judicial procedure, as we have discussed, is a variance requesting variances from section 13-426 to allow a swimming pool to encroach by 4 feet 6 inches waterward of the top of the slope or tie line, and a variance from section 13-1605C7 to allow a swimming pool waterward of the top of the slope line. The applicants are seeking to renovate a swimming pool and modernize an existing pool. And they're seeking to have a 540 square foot swimming pool with an infinity edge. The home currently has a swimming pool and can accommodate a normal size swimming pool within the confines of the code, within, not encroaching into the water line edge. However, the applicant wishes to have an infinity edge on the pool, and that desire requires the pool to encroach onto the water line, because the infinity edge needs the drop in slope in order to work as the visual effect that it's supposed to have. I think the applicant has supplied some 3D renderings of how a swimming pool with an infinity edge works and why it needs to be encroaching onto the edge. Basically, this item is not a matter of whether they need a variance in order to have a pool, because a pool can exist. This is about whether the infinity edge on itself is something that warrants a variance in order for them to be able to do it. I'm going to allow the applicant to come out and explain a little further if they like.
Please state your name and address for the record first, please. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Judith Padilla. I reside at 16691 Northwest 82nd Avenue. And this is Mr. Israel, his builder. And we are requesting this because the pool, it's broken in 3 pieces. So we need to replace the pool. It's not like we cannot fix it. We have to make a brand new one. So in order to make this investment that we're making, we'll try to do as much as, I'm a little bit nervous. This is my first time.
Please.
I'm sorry.
We're all your neighbors. We're also.
nervous. Don't worry about it.
I just want to make it futuristic, something that looks beautiful, because we have the lake in the back, and then we have a lot of green, and then we just want to make the infinity to be an infinity when we look at it, So I would like the opportunity, if I may, to consider my proposal and see if we can do this. It'll be a nice thing, It's not like, the normal size like everybody has, like it used to be before. And everything is changing nowadays, so it looks something nice. Thank you.
Okay. Would you like to?
Oh, you want some question?
Well, we could open for questions, I guess, to
I-
staff or.
I'm going
Ann?
to add really quickly that the way that the code is currently written, because no accessory structures can encroach beyond the tie line other than decks, gazebos, platforms into the lake, docks, and the such. Because the basin of the infinity edge is not one of those allowable structures that are allowed to encroach onto the slope beyond the tie line, right now the code does for practical purposes, does not allow infinity edge pools. It doesn't explicitly say no infinity edges are allowed in Miami Lakes, but the practicality of it, the practicality of how the code is written right now is that no infinity edges can be built without a variance. And that's why we're really here.
I have a question of staff and maybe the applicant.
Let me say
Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Please state your name and address first.
My name is Israel Garcia. I'm the contractor on the pool, the Aquarius building.
And your address?
Huh?
Your address for the record.
Oh, my address, 7700 Northwest, 163th Street, Miami Lakes, Florida, 32016.
Okay.
I sent some pictures.
Yeah.
You can see the drop. Maybe in the 3D it's a little bit higher. So the most higher we had in the drop is 1 feet, o sea, 12 inches. You consider this, okay?
Okay. And basically, the variance, even though we're asking for 4.5 feet, the
Yeah.
reason why it's saying 4 or 5 feet is because there's the basin where the infinity drops.
2 feet of the encroachment that they're requesting is for the basin, which would be at grade level. So is an encroachment at the same level as the ground that is adjacent to it. So if it was a deck, it would be allowed because a deck is allowed to be 18 inches at grade level for 225 square feet. The only reason that is not allowed is because it's collecting the water for the pool, so it's a basin instead of a deck. So again, is a difference of function, but not a difference of fact.
We
in a way,
changed
right?
the deck for the basin, basically.
In the packet, it mentioned that we had received written support, but I didn't see any written support letter.
The letters are attached to the agenda.
They are?
They should be.
I didn't see it.
I didn't put them in.
I didn't see it.
There are no letters of
I didn't
support.
see them.
Yeah, it was mentioned, but it wasn't there.
Well,
But they were there?
yeah, we have received letters of support. I just, for some reason, they didn't make it to the agenda package.
And I assume there's been no letters against.
No, not as there was a neighbor that came in complaining about some things, and they were coming in to complain at the hearing, but this morning they came in and realized that they were actually complaining about a different neighbor.
No.
So they decided not to come in.
Okay.
It was a mistaken identity, so
So no. So no one opposes.
And
I have a question, Chair.
Yes, please.
Does you said that the pool is broken, it's non-functional, whatever. And the pool that is in the house right now did comply with the measurements and the slope requirements and all that when it was built, I assume, right? My question to you is, why can't you just do the same thing? In other words, redo the pool in the same shape and form that it was before, only brand new, rather than take away from the lake.
Well, that's why I mentioned before, why doing something that it was the same thing, like it was there, when we're going so far to the future, and it could be something beautiful done instead of doing the same thing. If I'm going to spend the money, I want to spend it on something a lot nicer. If you look at the town of Miami Lakes, before we didn't have all these beautiful buildings around. Now we do, and then when we come here, it's like, oh my God, how much have we changed? You know, so.
I have a question to the chair. So that additional 4 feet, it's for the basin exclusively, or is part of it extending the pool and part of it the basin?
Very good question.
Okay.
So 2'6" is for the pool surface. 2 feet are for the basin.
Okay. And the reason why basins aren't covered, they're not prohibited by the code. I believe they're just not explicitly allowed by name, right?
Allowed to encroach on the tie onto the, and again, the only place where an infinity pool would make sense is on a property where you have a slope
Right.
and therefore a tie or atop a slope, right? And by nature, the basin would have to be beyond the top of slope in order for the infinity edge to work.
Right.
So the fact that it's not mentioned explicitly in the list of things that are allowed to encroach.
I view
That's the
that to mean it's not prohibited. I view that
Right.
to mean that's something that
Well,
could be allowed.
The zoning official believes different. If it's not explicitly allowed, and then you don't have, they don't allow anything other than a gazebo, a deck of 225 square feet, blah, 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 blah. So there's things that are explicitly said, yes, you're allowed to have these things. A basin for a pool is not one of them, and no part of the pool is mentioned as an allowable encroachment into the top of slope.
I have a question through the chair. I have a couple of questions of the applicant, if I might. Is there any reason that the pool has to be the size that it is so that we have that number of feet potentially encroaching? The pool could be smaller with less of an encroachment?
Yeah, we can make it smaller, but then it would not have the effect of, if you look at the last picture, when you look at with the lake, it will not have that.
Right.
So
the whole-
without that number of feet, you would not get that
No.
straight-out view where you've got the infinity pool. Am I reading it right when I'm looking at it looking straight out to the lake? Am I correct? So if you were to
Yes.
shorten the pool,
If
then
you
you,
shorten
in
it, then
essence,
you'll
have that
be
drop,
looking at the greens
and
instead
then you
of,
have the lake, where this way you're looking straight.
Yeah.
We lose the view. You put it more smaller, we lose the view of the slope, for the slope.
Thank you. And then through the chair to Susanna, do we have any infinity pools in the town of Miami Lakes at this point? I think that we have one, am I correct?
We have at least one that was recently built. It was another pool that had attained a variance. It was a pool that did not fit into the space that was allowed for the pool, so it was given a variance to encroach onto the slope. And because it was creating a rather large drop from the edge of the pool to where the slope was meeting it, in order to hide that drop, we requested that they either put landscaping or that they do the infinity edge, and they chose to do the infinity edge. So that's the one pool that.
And that variance came in front of this board, am I correct?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. A few months ago.
I got a couple of questions to the chair, if you don't mind. The lot coverage, what's their lot coverage? Do they comply with the lot coverage on?
Yes, sir. They comply with all lot coverage and all regulations as far as size, setbacks, and coverage of decking on the pool. And no decking is going to be permitted beyond the top of the slope, other than their 225 square feet that they're generally allowed.
Or generally allowed. And they're doubling the size of the original pool, from what I see.
Right. Correct.
The drawing here shows a crosshatched original pool, and they're basically, it was like 10 feet wide. They're going to make it 20 feet wide
Correct.
by the same
Yes.
length, with a hot tub. It looks like a spa in it. Okay.
If I can, one more question. If in fact we're, to the chair, to Susanna, is the question, obviously we have the request for the variance here, but at some point in time, is it conceivable that the building code itself could be revisited?
Not the building code, but the zoning code. The
zoning
code.
code.
Yes, the
I'm
zoning
sorry,
code.
that's what I meant. My apologies.
If you choose, if the board sees that the basin of the infinity edge pools would be a reasonable encroachment onto a type of slope, then yes, it would be a good idea to suggest it to the council that they look into addressing that and adding it to the code. It could still be, it could be something that we continue to address as a variance until we see how it works, or it could be forwarded to the council as something to be looked into.
I just have a procedural question. So now, once this is done, we can engage in kind of the conversation about the issue with ourselves, right?
Correct.
Okay.
My actually, it's not a question for the applicant, so I'll wait until we're ready to discuss.
It looks to me that you got, you're on the long part of the lake. So the infinity there you would really be able to see out more. Now, in addition, how many square feet do you think that they would be adding of paving? Will they have the 225 square feet, or would they be less than that at this point?
Of paving, right now, they're not proposing 225, no. They're proposing a lot less. I don't know what the correct number
Yeah,
right
because
now.
I can't figure
but
it
it's
out on
barely 2
this, what the
feet.
square footage of
Yeah,
it.
it's a 2-foot strip by however wide it is. It's rather narrow right now.
Okay, and then your intent is not to, if we were, as one of the items that we can as a board, if we were to be so inclined to approve, we condition the approval that they cannot add additional?
Correct, yes. No, they're not asking for any additional square footage than what the code allows. So as of now, it would be a natural condition to be that no additional square footage is allowed. You don't
Right,
need
but
to.
if we don't
what I'm saying is
condition
you
that
don't
to
need
this,
to
they
do that.
could extend the decking,
No.
legally entitled to without coming in front of us. But we can condition this. Right, that's what I think.
Right.
Right, so there's about, right, so can we condition the granting of this variance to that they're not going to exercise a right that they have? I mean, I don't even know if we can.
That's a good question for Mr. Kobiaya.
Can you rephrase the question?
Okay, so right now, they could do 225 feet from the slope. According to the plans that they submitted, they're only going to do about 80.
Okay.
They have that right to, I guess, add another 150 square feet going forward.
Okay.
Can we condition approving this variance to them basically agreeing to that they're not going to exercise that right that they, by code, would have to add additional square footage? The idea would be to try to limit any additional, encroachment in that area.
So our code permits that the board can go ahead, and it's section 133005, 2 conditions and safeguards. The town board can prescribe the appropriate modifications and conditions that they feel necessary in order to pass the variance. So the answer would be yes.
Okay, because I know, and I think in another one of the infinity pool, we agreed at that point was to either have some kind of landscaping or some kind of other feature to, kind of, so that when you're looking at, because our concern is you're looking at from your terrace out. Our concern that we have to look at is everybody else around you looking at your pool in. So one of the reasons why we have the green area at Miami Lakes is so that it's the whole greenery around. So when these pools get built, and I know that they're popular and they're beautiful. I personally I love them, but whatever, it is what it is. The idea is to keep it as green as possible around our lakes. If you look at Miami Lakes, that's one of the things that we're also known for. If everybody starts building up, because literally to do the infinity, you also have to build up. So now we start seeing, your side of the infinity with the pool, but then we see, this whole concrete, or, even though you're probably going to put some very nice flooring or tile work, then you start seeing this rim around, which is part of what we would be inclined not to allow.
I understand.
Because it changes the dynamics of the whole town. And that's our probably, at least my internal way of how do we work
Well,
what
if
you
you-
would
if you-
want, plus balance it with the rest of your neighbors.
If you would be one of my neighbors that say, I'm going to go for a ride on a boat on the lake, I'm going to paddle just the afternoon around to see, then when you look towards our house, what you're going to see first is going to be the green.
Okay,
It's a lot of green.
all right.
We have coconut trees, it's going to be, the green is what you're going to see.
On the picture, you see the drop on the side. All this is the green area. So, the 3D is a different, to see the...
And the height that you're proposing,
the height is the 12 inches less. This is the more higher.
because I could
If I
have
may-
sworn
If I may,
said 18 inches.
If I may, any decking that is allowed to encroach onto the top of slope cannot be any higher than 18 inches above the existing grade. So if any decking that would be extending at the natural top of slope out would have to naturally step down until it meets that 18-inch above the, you see what I'm saying? So you would never have more than 18 inches above existing grade anywhere. So you would never have like a tall wall in any condition, even if they were availing themselves of whatever decking they're allowed to have. Does that make sense? So, and that would never, that would, correct.
Okay.
And the percentage that you're talking about, it's the percentage on the pool or the percentage on the deck?
Well, one of the things that I'm thinking of is the possibility, I just wanted to make sure we could do that, is limit that the deck is not going to extend further, because technically speaking, the decks could extend another 170 feet from what they were proposing right now without needing any kind of approval, so
By code,
by code. But
by code, would they be allowed to do that without a,
Correct.
right, so one of the things that I'm thinking is potentially approving with that condition that they cannot, exercise that right to extend the
Okay.
decking any further.
okay? Mm-hmm.
Mr. Senra, can you please speak into your microphone so we can hear you?
I said that the basin part would not be considered part of the decking. It would be just considered the basin, so you can't count it as
As a
decking.
deck,
You
okay,
can't count that as decking.
okay. And how much more deck will they be allowed by code to,
It looks to me, I
add?
can't, you don't have measurements there, so it looks to me like on one side they have about 18 feet and on the other maybe 12, and you go by 2'6", more or less, you don't have the measurement.
10 feet.
Yeah, I'm just guessing because there's no measurements there for that.
How can you
So
read,
about 80 square feet, plus or minus.
More or less.
how can you read those numbers? I can't.
I have very good glasses. Leoncio, here, pass this down to Leoncio. Pass this down to Leoncio. It's bigger, I made it bigger, sir.
I couldn't
I-
read, to the sheriff, I couldn't read
Yeah.
or I couldn't find the actual distance from the edge of the pool to the water. How many feet are, what is the requirement?
It-
And what does it compares as to this project right here?
Well, what I'm looking, and I'm just expanding it on my iPad, that's the only reason why I'm making the statement. It looks to me that it's going to be at least 26 and a half feet.
Yeah, 26.5.
But wasn't-
26-5, yeah.
Did the code change? Because it was supposed to be 35 feet.
This is a
The
condition.
edge of the pool? No.
At one point in time, it was 35.
Right, they're gonna have
Different
26.
lakes have different conditions. The code always talks about the top of slope, which is something, it's a line that comes platted at the time of platting. So some properties are 25, the top of slope is 25 feet from the water's edge. Sometimes, and again, because this erosion, natural conditions, these lines sort of shift a little bit through time. But these properties were platted at 25, and right now it's 26. So obviously a little bit of erosion has happened through the
Okay.
years.
To the chair, can I say something?
Yes, please.
The reason for the slope is if we get a monsoon rain of 10 to 12 inches in a day and a half, I've seen the lakes, because I've been here 40 years, I've seen the lakes come almost all the way to the top of the slope. I mean, it was within a foot of the top of the slope, and from my top of the slope to the lake is about 60 feet.
Yeah, I remember in Lake Cynthia, for example, which is where I live, the requirement was 35 feet from the edge.
Right.
To
Right,
the
but they're
water.
all different.
And
They're all different.
and I can remember a couple of tropical storms, not hurricanes, but tropical storms that we had. The water just came right up to the edge, right there. The water level. So
Are there any other questions of staff, or?
I just have a few more questions for you, just to kind of clarify. You're not intending to add any more decking, because from what I know, I think if you would add more decking, you actually lose the illusion of the infinity
Exactly.
pool. So I wouldn't know why you would want to put it in there in the first place if what you want is the infinity pool, right?
Exactly.
So right now, you're not intending to do that at all?
No.
Okay, and correct me if I'm wrong, but in doing an infinity pool, you actually pay more than a standard pool. It's actually a
That's
greater
correct.
expense to you to make it look nicer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's all I just kind of wanted clarity on. I'll save the rest for kind of discussion.
Through the chair, support from both neighbors on both sides?
Actually had 3. My neighbor from the corner and both sides.
And so with the infinity edge, there's no way that you disrupt the view, if you will. You're at the end of the lake. Nobody had any objections to that.
Any further questions? Okay, so at this time, I'd close the public hearing. You may be seated, and we'll
Thank you.
discuss.
Thank you.
I mean, we could either do a motion, or if we want to open it up to discussion amongst ourselves and then do a motion.
No, I think that what they have in favor is that they're on the long edge of the lake. So I think that their request will be minimized by the location of their lot.
Yeah, and really, it's only like a 2 feet encroachment. The other 2 is the basin, and they have a longer area. Aesthetically, it's going to only improve the property. Certainly, they're not impeding it. They have letters of support, and I think we've approved, actually, situations that weren't as good as this one. I think it is a bigger cost to the family. I think what they're doing is actually, increasing the property. Tomorrow, they move, and it's only benefits the town. So,
Yeah, and I think the point that the chairman made, it's the people, not them looking out, but we looking in. I think it's going to be an improvement from the point of view that they're on the long edge of the lake.
So through the chair, I wanted to make a comment. So to piggyback on what Leoncio was saying, I agree that one of the considerations is us taking into account that the neighbors are going to be looking onto this, right? I agree with you that I don't believe there's going to be an impact on that. I do know, so I'm actually a neighbor. I don't live on the same lake, but I live just a couple of blocks, and I'm inclined to support it. And when I'm looking at something like this, what I really, aside from taking the other neighbors into account, I think of filtration, of water filtration. So I was probably the only dissenting vote when somebody came up and asked for a large driveway, right? And that's something that to me is important, because I want there to be filtration, for the rainwater to have a place to trickle and to percolate, right? And in this case, I think some of what they're asking for is a basin, and that's actually going to help that. So I'm inclined to support it, or to vote yes on it for that reason. And I think that, and it's going to beautify the neighborhood, and I think, that's my opinion at least.
Does anyone want to entertain making a motion specifically, or?
I'll make a motion to approve as with the staff recommendations.
I would second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. It has been seconded. We could open it for further discussion before we take a final vote, if there's any.
Just one thing I wanted to say is, they may be allowed to do a sidewalk to the water's edge, or no?
yes, they would be.
They would still be allowed to do a sidewalk. It would be
At grade,
considered
yes.
a deck.
At grade, yes.
So,
At grade, and only 3 feet wide, and, yeah, right.
yeah, so the board knows that they would still be allowed to do a sidewalk down to the water's edge. That would not be inclusive of a deck. I don't want to.
And that would be allowed
That's allowed
without a
in
hearing.
the code no matter what. That's allowed in the code no matter what. So in case they did a sidewalk, someone would say, no, you didn't follow what we said. I wanted to bring that up. Okay? That's the only thing I would have to say.
No, I mean, if they meet the zoning code, I mean, I don't have a problem with maintaining my motion.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I just think while they may be allowed to do it, I don't know why you would if you have an infinity pool. I don't know why you would touch anything, because what makes it aesthetically pleasing to the eye is that it just kind of goes eye level. So anything else you will put there would actually cut that clean view. So I can't imagine why they would fight for the infinity pool and then put something to interrupt it. So, I mean, I would maintain the motion. It just seems like they would want the infinity pool as constructed or proposed.
No, it's just for information purposes only. So you would know they could do a sidewalk.
Okay, any further discussion? I guess we could call the vote.
Board Member Fernandez,
Yes.
Board Member De La Sera,
Yes.
Board Member Yanes,
Yes.
Board Member Senra,
Yes.
Board Member Leoncio,
Yes.
Vice Chairwoman Matos,
Yes.
Chairman Julia.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Got yourself a pool.
Congratulations. Thank you. Okay. Moving forward, the next item on our agenda has to do with item B, which is an ordinance of the Town Council of the Town of Miami Lakes, Florida, relating to allowable uses in commercial districts, reorganizing, reformatting, consolidating, and amending Chapter 13 Land Development Code at Article 4 Zoning District Regulations at Division 20, Business, Commercial, and Industrial District Matter List, providing for findings of fact, intent and purpose, providing for regulations, providing for repeal of laws in conflict, providing for severability, providing for inclusion into the code, and providing for an effective date. I'm sure staff. Yeah, you're more than welcome to stay, but. All right, thank you.
Thank
And
you.
you just have to invite us to the pool party when it opens up.
Yeah, when it opens, let us know.
That was a joke. That was a joke.
Joke, by the way.
That was a joke. Be careful.
I know.
Okay. No, that would probably be
Yeah,
considered a
but-
gift or
yeah.
something, or probably breaking 82 rules.
Exactly.
So going back to item B, with the ordinance changes for,
An ordinance, I mean, you read the ordinance, you want me to reread it? I mean, Suzanne, Ms. Alonso can explain a little bit of it, but this is a project which she's taken a lot of time in doing and looking through our master business list, and take it away.
This is an item that is preparing our code for things that are coming up in the next year. We're getting ready to look at some overlays and to be looking at other items that are maybe impacting how users get permitted in certain areas of the town. And the first thing that we really needed to do in order to be able to do those things was take this business master list that is in Division 20 of the code and sort of start cleaning it up a little, bringing it up, removing contradictions, removing things that were obsolete text, things that didn't make sense, and remove things that didn't belong there to begin with. When we inherited the code from Miami-Dade County, we basically took it as is and adopted it as is. It was including districts that the town doesn't have, like a BU1, districts that we just don't have. Different kinds of industrial districts that exist in the county, but they never existed within the boundaries of the town. It's not that they were removed, it's not that they have disappeared, they just never existed here. The fact that our business master list in our code is still listing these districts was making it very cumbersome, very difficult to read, very confusing sometimes for applicants that would come in and try to figure out where they can fit their business, and they want to fit it in a district that we don't have. So in an effort to basically just do the housekeeping exercise of cleaning it up and bringing it, removing things that are contradictory, like uses that are similar in nature but are treated completely different in different sides of the code. Every single kind of chemical manufacturing we can list, and maybe like condensing them into a single chemical manufacturing line, and make it easier to read. So at the end of the staff report, I have added a chart that shows what it would look like right now if it's adapted the way it is, so that it's a little bit easier to read. I would really appreciate it if you guys looked at it a little bit like with a red team light, because at this point we're not attempting to change any uses or change whether a use is not permitted, yes or no. This is just a cleanup job. So we're still meaning to have everything be exactly as it is today, but just be more readable. The three things that we are tweaking, not necessarily changing, just for consistency's sake, is three things and how they're treated as conditional uses. And these are listed on the staff report. I'm going to go through them really quickly. One is how we treat personal services. Personal services right now in the IUC, in the industrial district, are required to get a conditional use, because there was a time where personal services were only allowed as a conditional use in the industrial district because we didn't have specific regulations to treat them. In the interim, however, there has been regulations that have passed that speak to how personal businesses in the IUC have to behave, and therefore the conditional use portion of it no longer makes sense. We don't really have to force them to get a conditional use, which is cumbersome, and it's another level of application. We can just specify, yes, you have to behave like this, like as is specified in this section, and move on with our lives. So the first change that we're doing is that. The second one is how schools and assembly uses get treated. Right now, the schools and assembly uses are conditional uses in some districts and not in others. It makes sense to make them conditional uses everywhere, because schools and assembly uses are not one size fits all. So we can't really create any regulations that will fit every school or every assembly use, and therefore it's a good idea to always look at them one-on-one. It's quite the opposite of the personal services, right? We do have regulations for personal services. We don't have any regulations that fit to all schools or to all assembly uses, and it would be very difficult and very lengthy to create those. So it's better to look at them one-on-one, and that's why it's a good idea to have them be conditional uses everywhere. And those are the only three changes that we're doing. The rest of it is meant to be the exact same business master list, just better written,
You only said two.
hopefully.
You only said two. You missed the churches.
Yeah, the churches are the assembly uses. So it's all religious institutions, all theaters, conference rooms, anywhere where people congregate, and anything that would be an assembly use as per the building department. So when the building department is issuing an assembly permit, we want to look at it as a conditional use, just to make sure that we know where they're parking, we know how people are arriving there, we know whether they need security, and whether we have to talk about whether they need to hire additional police officers, and that sort of situation.
When I was looking through it, some of the original strike through and the attachment A did not coincide. So, like, for example, in the pistol, rifle, skeet, archery range, you actually add additional language in the original lengthier one, the original strike-through one, but then in the proposed one, it's not there. I don't know if that was just kind of an error or done intentionally.
Hold on, let me go. Let me go there, give me a second.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of, so that's attachment A.
Yeah, 'cause I don't think that was intended as a strike-through. It was probably intended to add the rifle, skeet, archery, or maybe,
I think the additional, yeah, I don't
or
know.
or maybe it was to,
I think you missed that last sentence, and that may,
I mean, we added additional language. We added accessory munition and
Because-
equipment sales.
right, because it
It
where
didn't make it
says
onto the,
but in the
pistol?
end, make it to attachment A is what she's saying.
it didn't
Yeah.
make it here, correct, yeah.
Yeah.
That's ju- yeah,
Unless
that's just a
it's,
Scrivener's
unless
error.
it's,
Okay.
you have pistol, rifle, skeet, archery ranges.
Yes, I know what you're talking about, because we added that later. It just
Yeah.
didn't make it, it didn't transfer in. Yeah, we didn't make it here, onto the staff report one.
The,
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because, and I guess as I read through it, and the more I read through it, the more I realized the depth of a lot of this, and I think you did great. And I guess the intent is to kind of streamline it, but in doing that, the ones that have and similar uses, and similar uses, and similar, to me are kind of concerning, because when you leave that vagueness, I think you lose the predictability, and you leave it open for interpretation. So none of the original ones have anything like and similar, and similar, and similar, because when you look at dance, music, martial arts, yoga, tutoring, and other similar uses of 10 or more people, like, that can mean anything. And that's kind of one of the most of all of this concerning things for me, that we went from a 40-page to a 4-page. And yeah, so it was like 40 to 4. So
3.
Yeah. And I said, okay, I get why, because some of them we don't have, but I don't know if maybe we chopped off too much by saying and similar.
So and it's probably why the county chose to do the very exhaustive list as opposed to the more reduced version that exists in other municipalities. So it's a valid point in that sense. There is, however, if you think about how the world evolves a little bit, right? So like every year there's a new thing that people come in asking. There is no way we can predict absolutely everything that walks in the door, no matter how much we try, because there's always going to be, this entrepreneurship is what it is. There's always going to be somebody with a new idea that is going to walk in with a brand new type of business that we're going to be completely dumbfounded and trying to fit it into one of these things. So there's a point where there's the expertise of the zoning official or the planner, or both, and sometimes the two of us in a room arguing about it, where you start saying, is this similar to what? This is a use that is similar to what? And there's parameters that we use as professionals to compare apples to apples and bring it down to what it is really truly similar to. Correct? So the effort of trying to create an exhaustive list of every possible use that can ever be, it is not a realistic thing, if you see what I'm saying. And that's where you begin to say, oh, well, if it's not on the list, then it's not permitted. And then you follow yourself into the other trap where now, we've had that problem recently with adult daycare centers that are not mentioned but truthfully, yes, we do know what they're similar to. An adult daycare center is very similar to a children's daycare center in that they have the same functions. They work because you drop off people in the morning, you pick them up in the afternoon, and it's the same. They're a similar use, even if they're not the same exact thing.
Yeah, I mean, that I agree with. That
Right.
I agree with, but the
yes.
one that caught my attention was the dance, music, yoga, tutoring, and
So those are places where you have maybe an hour worth of
shooting.
instruction.
I mean, I don't know.
Correct. So those are places where you have maybe an hour's worth of instruction where 10 to 14, 15, 20 people come in at once, right? So if you have something where it's 7 people, maybe less, and more than 10, so that's why the 10 is the breakup. But if they come like every hour, maybe in the afternoon. But it's not the same as a regular school where people come in from 9 to 2 or from 9 to 3 in the afternoon, right? So in a music school would be, we don't care what they're teaching. We don't care why people are coming in there. We don't care if they're dancing, doing karate, or learning yoga. Is the fact that they're coming in maybe 10 to 20 at a time, and in an hour there's going to be another 10 to 20. And it's a sort of like a cyclical thing. So that's why they're grouped together, because they are similar, even if the things I would say a Bible study would be a similar thing to this, even though it has nothing to do. Or maybe like a tutoring place is similar to this. Not because of the nature of what they're doing, but how the place functions and what kind of traffic it attracts and what kind of activities come in and what kind of public attends it, right? And again, this is where the little bit of the discretion of the professional comes in, because you actually have to have somebody in place that is making a decision as to where they fit, right?
And the other thing, or things, is that I saw that like the post office was removed, the police and fire were removed, and the townhomes were removed. Were they put in somewhere else?
Well, again, those are all municipal services.
Okay.
And as such, they are contained in the municipal services.
Susanna, Ms. Alonso started out by saying that we adopted this from the county. So
Right.
some of these uses that you just alluded to are municipal services. So at certain times, a municipality may have to ask for, certain buildings to be placed in certain areas and may need to go to the county, Durham, for instance, right? And so that's why they appeared there. But we're a municipality, there's no reason for us to have that within our own code.
Because we ask it of ourselves,
Yeah.
basically. So
And-
the county needed it because in the county is a municipality that asked it of, so we are the applicant to the county, right? So they need to know where to allow us, the applicant, the municipality, to place it. We don't need that because we have the discretion as a municipality to place it where we need to.
Okay. And then the last thing, the way that the restaurant, bars, establishments serving food and liquor, it almost seems like a conjunctive versus a disjunctive. It almost seems like you're saying it has to serve food and liquor.
Okay, all right, good point. Good point. Or, did we? Well, let's go look at it. Because that's a good point.
Ms. Yanis, what page was that?
That's, yeah, it's attachment A, page 64. Restaurants, bars. 1, 2, 3, 4. Fifth from the bottom.
All right, they treat it different, hold on.
It's attachment A, page 64.
You're correct. I'm going to change that. No, she's correct. She's correct. We have a line just for restaurants a little bit farther down.
Right.
And if they were treated differently, whether or not they're serving liquor, then it would make sense to separate them. But because they're treated the exact same way, so they're permitted in the same spaces, it doesn't make sense. So we can remove one of the two, and we can say it and or liquor. So that's right. So you are correct. That's a good one. And the sections that they point to are identical as well, so that's why, and that's how we basically gone through the exercise. If there's the same thing that has the same regulations that are treated the exact same way, then they can be combined, and that's the, right.
To the chair, I'd like to make a comment that I think is a commendable job what you have done here. I'm not an attorney, so I didn't read as refined as as Marianne did, but I thought it was great to summarize all this from all the pages that we had before into to 3 pages. I think it's a commendable job, and I'm glad that you are our principal planner for the town.
I had a lot of help.
I recommend that you get a raise too.
Miss Victoria Vega was immensely helpful and helped me read through stuff, and she's here with us today, and without her, this would have been a lot more painful.
I recommend that you get a
You did a great
raise
job.
for the record, and that we keep you for a long time as a planner.
Yeah.
She's making a statement here about
This
Victoria.
was definitely tedious.
Yes, so we have with us Board Member Senra, Victoria Vega. She is a resident of the town, and she's been interning with us. And in doing this exercise of reviewing it, Ms. Alonso was just saying that she helped a lot tremendously in this
Well, thank
very
you.
smart treasure we have here in the town.
We thank her,
She's
too.
working for free.
We thank you too.
Correct, and she's volunteering her services. So
Volunteering her
this is, we are
better.
very, very blessed to have had her here at this time,
Wow.
because otherwise I would have cried quite a bit through this. Yeah.
I have a couple of general questions too on, I'm imagining the P and the A and the C is for the conditional use, and then the P is permitted,
Permissive.
and
So the
A?
P is permitted, the C means it's a conditional use. If it has an asterisk, it means that there is a regulation in here that pertains only to that district and not to the other ones. And if it has an A, it means accessory, which means it means that it has to be attached to something else. So for example, if you have a commercial or retail activity in the residential office district, it can only be attached to as an accessory, so like a little convenience store inside of the building, and not as a main use like a supermarket.
Okay. And we have the RO is residential office?
Residential office, we have two of those. We have a RO 13, which is 13 units to the acre. We have an RO 50, which is 50 units to the acre. We have a BU 1A, which is the smaller density commercial district, a BU 2, which is the higher density commercial district. We don't have all the ones in between. The county has BU 1, BU 3.
Right.
We don't have any of those. Then we have an IU 1. Only one lot in the BU 1 is the current lot where the firehouses on 67th Avenue is the only lot that is IU 1, but it exists, so I left it in. And IUC is the rest of our industrial districts are IUC.
And
We
then-
don't have IU 2s or IU 3s, so those are out. And the rest of it is the town center district, which is the area around us.
Okay, and like, for example, is there, like, there were some items that were not put on town center, like the personal services, that's not permitted in town center?
Personal services are,
Because there's nothing there on the little square.
that's a mistake. Good catch.
Okay,
That's okay,
and
yeah, that's a mistake.
the dog kennel, dog daycare, I don't know.
And if you see the personal services, they have an asterisk in the industrials and on the accessories because they are regulated by the special rules only in those districts and not in the town center. So that's a very good example.
I don't know about the dog kennel, dog daycare, but there could technically, I don't know. That's not included in town center, but it's included in the other districts.
So a kennel is
It's a
really,
different-
yeah, it's a kennel. So it's a very, is not something, right, right. And it's a
But like, for
conditional use
example,
everywhere else. It's,
I'm
right
thinking
now,
now of the shopping center where Winn-Dixie is at.
that's the BU 2. That's a BU,
That's a BU too.
yes.
Okay.
The town center is what we have around us right now,
Right, Main Street.
Main Street and this area. Again,
Yeah.
some of these are oversights, but that one, it was like that.
Yeah.
It's like that right now. If we choose to change
That's
it
not
into
town
having
center.
it to be a conditional use in the town center, then that's a change. That wouldn't be, you see what I'm saying? So I'm being very careful not to change anything now, other than mistakes, which apparently I've made a few. Yeah,
You gotta wake up to make one.
yeah.
With respect to the call center, is there a reason why we're only limited them in the town center and in IUC? and not
Correct.
in the
Call
BU?
centers are massive places where a lot of people come in all at the same time and leave all at the same time and require a lot of parking because they get packed in very tight in the space that they go in. So call centers, we don't want them to go unnoticed. We want to be able, we don't want them to go in just a regular office space anywhere, and we want to be very aware of where they go and how the parking is working and how, and right now, they are allowed only as conditional uses in these two places. So we're not changing that. And I'm leaving them as a one-liner on their own because they need to be
Yeah.
called out for themselves.
And right now, conditional permit, so let's say I come and I get a conditional permit, that needs to be renewed every year.
Correct. They're not renewed, they're reviewed every year.
So it's reviewed.
They're reviewed every year. So a conditional use, they come in and they get their initial approval, and every year we basically go through a little exercise where I check to see that they don't have any violations, that they haven't been violating any of their conditions. I may, depending on what the conditional use is, I may give them a call and have a conversation. May check with the police to see if there's been any undue activity around the place, depending on what the use is. Some of them warrant it, some of them don't. Sometimes I'll make a visit and check that the premises are still however they were requested to be. And again, the smaller ones are not such a big deal. The big ones are the most interesting ones. Yeah.
Okay. I have no further questions. I mean, you did take out the frog farm, which I live on a lake, and that's
And of note, we did take out potash.
Through the chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve with the changes that have been made by the staff and the board.
I'll second that.
I think this is one of the ones that we could all vote yay, or do we need to do roll call? All those in favor of the motion say yay.
Yay?
Anyone opposed, say no. Hearing no one opposed, the motion passes. No director's report, or there's a director's report?
Yes, I would like to say that we're working on the mobility fees for second reading coming up on January 21st. This will go to first reading on January 21st as well. And the 8-foot fences passed second reading last time, so we're moving in very, very steadily in the right direction. Also, there probably will not be a February hearing, so our next hearing will be March 4th, the first Tuesday of March, and I think it's March 4th.
One thing I wanted to say that both Ms.
March
Alonso and I
5th,
were
right?
discussing is, today, one of the items that you saw was an issue where our code, because it hasn't been revised in a while, and times change and things happen, and so the code doesn't reflect changes. Okay, we have one instance here with the infinity pool. It's not mentioned anywhere. The catch basin's not mentioned anywhere. We have other issues that we've been discussing with regards to, I'll just say, registration of boats. That's another issue. As a local planning agency, you have the ability, if you feel that there's something in our code that should be looked at or reviewed and you want to bring it to the council's attention, to discuss it. So between now and March, if you have any of those things, feel free to reach out to Ms. Alonso, feel free to reach out to me, mention it, we can add it to the agenda, and it can be discussed. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Okay. Any other items? No other items? The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I'll be out of town on the 3rd.
On March 3rd?
I'll be skiing.